How old were you when you had your first training, your first martial arts training?
Oh, that was in summer, October 2013. That was my first martial.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just eight
So
years ago.
yeah, and 2 years after that, I was fighting my first fight in the UFC, and I remember, basically, like at first when I went in the martial art, it was just for fun, to curiosity. I'm like, oh, it's fun. Oh, it's good. I like those kick shit, or But I didn't like seeing myself being a UFC fighter, and people was like, "Oh, if you put yourself into this, you can become a UFC fighter and a UFC champion. You can have a UFC belt wrapped around your waist." I'm like, whatever, Didn't care about it until I have the UFC contract. Like 2 years after that, I'm like, okay, this might be the opportunity that I have been looking for. So it's time to capitalize and showcase my talent and show the world and shock the world.
How many fights did you have before you fought in the UFC?
6 fights.
6 fights.
Yeah.
And did you have them all in France?
A few fights in France, just 4 in France. I had 4 fight in France, and in France, the ground and pound is not allowed. When he goes, that was back then, because MMA was still illegal. So when he goes on the ground, he's just turned into grappling game.
Really?
Yeah. So I had 4 fights in France, one in Switzerland, and one in Bahrain.
Bahrain. So when did they find out about you? How did the UFC find out about you?
That was my coach Fernand. By the time, was working with a manager named Thiago, a Brazilian guy. So they kind of like push. Thiago has a connection with. He was a manager, so Fernand was all the time sending him text message and videos that he would forward to the UFC, and they was still like, yes, but he hasn't fight nobody tough yet. Yeah, he hasn't get a real test yet, until I fought this guy in Bahrain named William Badulti, and knock him out in the second round. Then I get my UFC contract right after that.
What was it like the first fight in the UFC? Was it different?
Whoa. That was a crazy experience. I didn't even know the rules back then. I remember I was in Orlando, and I'm like, man, this is the time. Like, I'm going to fight to be seen in the whole world. So this is the time to take my opportunity to showcase my talent, to prove that I can do something. Then I'm like, okay, so what is this? What it is about? It's MMA. How MMA works? What is the rules? How it goes? And I couldn't get it. Like, didn't know the rules. But
Because you got used to no ground fighting, punching on the ground. Because there's no ground and pound in France.
yeah, even though I was just doing it for 2 years, and remember, at first it was just for fun,
Right.
so didn't really was there to become a professional fighter. All I care about at the time was boxing. Then I found myself there in 2 years. Then I'm like, okay, what is the rules again? How it works? Okay, if he try to take me down, I gonna do this. Like, trying to figure all those out. It was very stressful, and I'm like, guess what? At the end of the day, it's just fighting. I don't know if this guy is doing some kung fu shit, but it's just fighting. We're gonna figure it out, It's just men
Kung fu
between men,
shit. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. I'm a tough guy, so I'm gonna handle it.
Why did you transition to MMA and not go into boxing?
It's not like a transition, and I didn't have a choice. I was doing MMA because when I went in France, I didn't have a paper, so I was illegal, so I couldn't work, and I wanted so bad to do sport, and I was doing boxing and MMA. But the MMA was the one that was more open and giving me opportunity. Like having a UFC contract as an MMA fighter was a big deal, and didn't have much. You know, like boxing war is kind of like a very complicated business. You have to know somebody. They have to like line you up. It's very complicated. But MMA was just easy. You know, people out. Then I'm like, who is that guy? We want that guy. It was pretty easy MMA wise.
Yeah,
And that's,
boxing you have to be connected to the right
yes,
promoter. And
yeah, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And basically, regarding my situation back then, I had a lot of odds, you know, coming from nowhere, nobody knows me with my accent. And, you know, in French, when you have accent, it's not a good thing.
It's not?
No.
What's it like over there?
It's frustrating because the way that they look at you when you speak with your accent, you know, you don't feel comfortable. You can't like let yourself express yourself. You just feel bad about yourself, you know, just seeing people react, some people reaction sometime. And you didn't have a resident card. You was like a migrant. So it was kind of, together was a tough situation to deal with, basically in the boxing business, because they're gonna go see this promoter, talk about you, but who is that guy? Where did this come from? You know, it's hard to have credit from someone.